Greetings, programmers. Busted Thumbs back, working on our Music Player Studio, and we're up to episode 12 now. And unfortunately, I have to start off this episode with a bit of bad news. The way that we were going to do our music playing does not work inside of Scratch. We had the loop almost done at the last episode, and I just figured I'd go make sure it all worked. And it turned out that when it played, every time it played an instrument, it would get into this kind of funny warbling sound. And there seems to be just something wrong with Scratch, having had to go in over and over again in various loops while it's playing some music. So we have to take a different approach. So I've taken our script and I've gotten rid of the playing music bit of it, which was over in this right hand corner, and we're going to have to change our technique. And so here's what I came up with that's a little bit different. We know that the notes can drift out of sync after a little bit of time, but it does take a little while. So what I thought we could do is we could have every one of the music players continue to play one measure. And at the end of the measure, they would have to say that they're done playing that measure. And then when all of the music players are done playing that one measure, it will be an indication to all of them that they can move on to the next measure. So in order to do that, basically all we have to do is keep track of how many every music player can come into a variable and say, hey, I'm currently playing music at the start of the measure, and then at the end of the measure they can say they're done playing their music. And when that value, it'll be a count that goes up and down. When it gets to 0, that means everybody's done, and everybody will just wait until that guy gets to 0. Then they'll increase it back up again, saying they're playing the next measure, and then move on. There's one problem that I thought of with this, and that is that a measure can actually, um, a note can be played over more than one measure. So you can't just say, when it gets to the end of the measure, that you say that you're done. You kind of have to say you're done after you play the last note in that measure, even if that's going to span over some, which means that I won't have a very good way of indicating that we're at the end of a measure exactly, unless I actually throw in another music player that does nothing but wait till the end of the measure. And you can do that. You can have a player that plays nothing. It just simply does a rest. You'll see inside sound there's not just a play note for, but there's a rest for a certain number of beats. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our original music player, the guy who's usually set to 1-1 on the instrument and the index. We're going to instead set him to 0-0, and then create clones for all of the real music reading. Okay, and the guy who's at 0-0 is going to be responsible just for resting, and he'll take care of anything that has to do with if it's just one type of thing that needs to be done. Like up here where we said only the very first one should happen, well, now it's going to be 0-0 instead of 1-1. And everybody else is going to be a clone. Okay? All right. So let's go ahead and make some of these adjustments. For one, I'm going to need inside of here a variable for this sprite only. This is my current measure. So we're going to need to know which one we're playing. And for all sprites, we're going to need that count variable, which is number of players playing. How about playing players count? Something like that. I'm trying to get it as small as I can, but still be descriptive. And that's for all sprites, which means that we need to set that in the very beginning to 0. So playing players count is always 0. And then inside of these guys, we need to make sure the new one that we set, our current measure, is going to be 0. That means we're not playing yet. So I'm going to go ahead and stick that up there and get rid of debug message because I'm not really using that guy right now. Okay. Now we need to change our logic inside of when we're making clones, because we don't need this special logic anymore for music instrument 1. We actually do want him to come in and work on all of them, just like all these other guys did. So let's go ahead and pull that if statement out of there and get rid of that. Now it's going to be working just like everything else was. Only now we've got a special clone that's 0, 0 that's doing the resting. Okay, everything should still work the way we had it before. There's going to be no music playing here, but we're in good shape in terms of the music being set up in the right data and having clones to work with. So let's go ahead and let's go. I'd like to go from working to working. So there is an event that happens when when the piano guy here is clicked, and we need to handle that message. So let's go ahead and get an event handler for that. So when I receive, and I believe it's play current music. When I receive the play current music, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set, I'm going to just be careful. Everybody should now start playing music 1. I'm going to set, everybody is going to be changing their current measure to 1. And I'm going to have a little special stuff for if we are the first guy, which is this condition. It's actually, well, it's a little bit different. It's going to be or. No, it's going to be and. It's there's only one for 0. So if your music instrument index, my instrument index is equal to 0, and there's only one of those guys, we'll just let that go through. And he's going to be responsible for now making sure that the number of playing players, it starts with at 0. And that was player playing count. Where is that? Oh, it's right there. That guy's set up to 0. And we want to make sure that happens before any music really happens. So actually, let's go ahead and make a second broadcast. So we're going to make sure that that happens first, and then everybody starts playing. Let's call this play first measure. Okay. And let's go ahead and handle play first measure. And the first thing that they're going to do is make sure that their current measure is set to 0. Everyone who is a player is going to change the playing players count by 1. And then they're going to play the measure that they need to play. And so that's going to be just like what we did before. Right now I'm going to just limit it, just so to make sure that I've got it working. I'm going to limit it to the first instrument. My current instrument, my instrument index, right there you go. If that's 1, so this should be the melody. And what it should do is, first it should read the next note. And then it should repeat until the measure of the next note is not equal to our current note. So not equal. On our next note measure, we have that. Is not equal to our my current note, my current measure. And then what it will do, it should play. Actually, we have that in a block. I don't need that anymore. I don't need to reset the note. I just want to play the note. So maybe I don't need this guy anymore at all. Let's go ahead and say we want to play the note, which is the next note. Somebody's using him. Okay, we don't need that guy anymore. Get rid of all that stuff. Okay, so it needs to play the next note, and it needs to play that next note for next note duration. and then it needs to go ahead and read the next note. Okay, now if I have this right, what's going to happen when we click the piano is that we're going to end up in here. That's going to set the playing players count to 0. All of the clones are going to increase that player playing count. They're going to be working on measure 1. And because I put this if statement in, we'll only get the melody, and we're going to get it just for measure 1. It's going to do that, and it's going to read until the next note is beyond measure 1, and that's fine. Okay, so let's make sure that that's doing what we expect. There's a meow in there. Who did that? There. I must put that into test. All right, let's try that again. Play the piano. Perfect. That's exactly what I had hoped would happen. We've got the first measure playing. And let's look at our data. In the end, what is playing players count? That value is 3, and that's exactly what I wanted as well. Okay, so what we really want here is all of the clones to be doing that bit, except for instrument 0. What I want, if my instrument index equals to 0, what I want it to do is I want it to rest, and it needs to rest the number of measures in a beat. The number of beats in a measure, I'm sorry. And I believe we have that. In one of beats per measure. So that guy just needs to rest. And all the other guys will do this other stuff. So actually I think I can change this to an if then else. You rest for that amount of time. Everybody else needs to go read their note and play it. Now I think if I'm correct on this one, what we're going to get is still one measure, but we should get both the melody and the accompaniment to go with it. Yes, and that's what we got. So at the end of the measure, what we want is that these players playing players count, that goes back down to 0. So we're going to need a little thing inside here that changes in all of them, especially this guy, changes the playing players count by -1. And we're going to need the same thing when this guy's all done in his loop. And what that'll mean, so we have this playing players count was here, and it should have been reset there. Let's go ahead and watch what it does as it plays. It went back down to 0, which is everybody got done playing their bit. What I want to have happen now is that everybody waits. They wait at this point until that goes down to 0, and then they go back and loop back through and play the rest of the music. Okay? So we're kind of at the end of this particular one. I got it from working to working. So we're good. We're playing one measure right now. In the next one, I'll get to play more than one measure, and then we'll start going into the more complicated things of what might happen if we have notes that have to span measures. Okay, that's going to take a little bit of math, but I'm glad that we're back to a point. I thought it would be at working last time, but it wasn't. It was at a point that it couldn't even work, and I even took the question to the forums, the script helping forums, and no one could figure it out. So we think it's probably just a bug that's kind of in Scratch right now. So there's always more than one way to solve a problem inside of programming, and we're now working on one of those other ways. But we've got a new start here, and we've got something working, and we'll build on it in the next one. Thanks for listening so far, and I will see you on the other side. Bye-bye.